Right, here we are back again, and it is now 9:42. So you've got to bear with us for the next an hour and a half, I guess, as we look at whatever we look at in this. And this is very relaxed, and we hope that people will sort of drop by. We have had several drop bys. We still have got to let people know that we're here, but we needed to get things right. We do have a little bit of a problem with the quality of the picture at the moment, but
It's a lot better than last week.
sorry,
It's a lot better than
is
last
it?
week. Yeah.
Well, hopefully it'll be even better because I went to get the little plug-in thing that helps distribute the internet. What do we call
Wi-Fi extender.
Yeah, the Wi-Fi thing, and of course it's not in store, so we have to send away for that. So we'll struggle through to the end of this week, and then next week the equality. And as we're going on forward, so we're getting more and more people involved. Yesterday we had Fergus Wood, who actually gave a little wine lesson, and who will at least once a month come in here and give a wine tasting for those people who are lucky enough to. But one of the things that I was just highly amused at is he has a wine called not forbidden, illegal, because it's produced by a small vineyard in the south of France that the authorities don't really approve of, but it's a superb wine. And the owner got so upset with the authorities because they wouldn't give him the stamp of authority. He decided to call it illegal, and you can get illegal from Fergus Woods at whatever his wine company is. We'll give you that address before the end of the show. And it's that sort of story that gladdens my heart when bureaucracy gets overwhelming and people can cock a snoot at it and say, yeah, to hell with you. All right, there we go. It's Max and Keith, and lurking somewhere is Oliver Stuart Dolby, who will do his Energy Matters program a little later. And then this afternoon, we're going to be talking to our American friend with cerebral palsy. So a pretty full day, all in all, and hopefully it'll be full like that for the yonks to come, as we get better and as people decide that they would like to appear on our television show. So Max, tell us what you've been doing in the time between you left us last week and the time that you rolled through the door this morning.
Well, I'm back at college with my first week again. Started a new project. We're doing commercials, so we're going to be advertising. I'm going to be advertising Lucasade as because that was the first thing that came to my mind. I was like, well, I like drinks, so that's what I'm doing, I guess. Yeah, just schoolwork. I haven't really done a whole lot. Didn't do anything over the weekend because I'm lazy.
Well, actually, I think that sometimes it's a good thing to make sure that you do get some time off. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, and I have to confess is that while I tend to work in the morning, is my eyes get particularly heavy in the afternoon, and I have a conscience, but I quite often allow them to drift off for a little while. And then I'll do a little bit of work in the evening, not a great deal, but just to make sure that we're ready for the new day. So there we are, two young men, well, one young and one not so young, who actually spend some of their leisure time in doing nothing. In fact, let's I think we might be lucky there. We're busy doing nothing, working the whole day through, trying to find lots of things not to do. We're busy going nowhere, isn't it just a crime? We'd like to be unhappy, but we never do have the time. I know who it is.
Okay.
Right, okay. We're busy doing nothing. So both Max and I know for a fact that Stuart were busy doing nothing for great chunks over the holiday period. I'm not feeling a bit guilty. Are you feeling guilty?
No.
No, absolutely not. There we go. We're busy doing nothing, and we're working the whole day through, working at it. So let's see how we go this morning, and we have a little chat about your college. I think we were sort of half expecting one of the tutors or the organisers to come and chat about it, because it is a very, very good scheme. It's the right thing to do. It takes people like Max who are more practical than they are academic, and make sure that they get the basics of an education like English you take, and mathematics.
I failed maths, so I have to retake it. Got my GCSEs coming up in 2 weeks.
All right, so you failed your mathematics.
Yeah, many times.
Oh dear. Well, we're not going to put you in charge of accounts then.
No, definitely not.
Right. Okay, but how long has this college been going? Do you know?
I think about not long. I think it's about 14 years, I believe. Not a long time.
14.
14.
Oh yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah. Okay.
But it's a really lovely college. It's a really nice location as well. It's right in the center of Brighton, opposite the shopping mall. It's a very, very old building. It's not really fit to be a school, I suppose. College, sorry, not school.
Yeah.
But it's quite interesting. My maths room has a fireplace in it.
Oh, wonderful!
So
wonderful.
It used to be a house, I believe, and then it was turned into DV8 College.
Right.
I think there was something before it, but
how many students are there?
Not a lot, less than 200.
Oh well, I mean, in some ways, I would approve of that, because that's when you start to get individual.
It's very
tuition.
personal.
Yeah.
You get to know the teachers, you get to know the students in other classes. Everyone knows everyone, sort of thing, and we can collaborate with different classes. So we've done stuff with the music department before. We are likely to do something with games at some point, but I'm not sure. So we do things together in classes sometimes.
Oh, that's very good. And so, if you are one of those people that fear that going to college or university would be beyond you because of some of the academic things that they demand from you, take a look at this college and colleges like it.
I would highly recommend DVA. I'm so glad I picked it.
Well done. There we go. Somebody who's actually there approves of it. All right. Let's. Where are we? We are in Lewes, in East Sussex, and we are broadcasting from the White Hart Hotel. And the White Hart is famous for having a number of people of great notoriety, if you like, And one of the stories that springs to mind, which is confirmed by the present owners of the hotel, Cliff Airy, the Rolling Stone character, Mick Jagger, was thrown into Lewis jail and on what some say a trumped up drugs charge, but anyway, on a drugs charge. And it was decided in the higher echelons at the time that he shouldn't be kept there too long because he was becoming something of an icon, and they didn't want to have a leader for a lot of the students at the time and young people at the time who were becoming quite activist. But when he got there, having been taken directly from court, he was hungry. So he said to the warder, how do I get something to eat? And sorry, Gov, the kitchen is closed. Not that I think it was exactly what Jagger had in mind. But he then said, well, where's the locus nearest and most available place to get a takeaway? And in those days, the takeaways weren't that popular. So the warder said, oh, the only place I can think of is the White Hart. So Jagger phoned the White Hart, spoke to the boss, and said, could I get a takeaway to Lewis Prison? And the boss said yes. So the kitchens went into operation, and a nice takeaway meal was prepared and sent down to Lewis jail so that Mick Jagger and those people who had been banged up with him could have a very nice, well-cooked meal. So there you are.
Wait, seriously, that's 100%. That's a confirmed story.
Absolutely, and in fact,
really good.
It is said that the menu, the exact menu, is tucked away in the file somewhere in the hotel. And Cliff Airy says, yes, he said that's true, but we're not quite sure where it is. And otherwise, we would actually get the we would get the menu out and let people see what was ordered that night.
Well, speaking of famous people in jail, have you seen the hilarious videos of coming out of prison from R. Kelly?
No.
The singer? R. Kelly, he's singing in prison. He's doing concerts in prison for the prisoners. The videos are hilarious. There was one video where this girl's dad went to the same prison as R. Kelly, and she was like, Dad, can you put him on the phone and sing for us? So he did. Some of the videos of him in prison were very funny.
Yeah. Tell everybody what this video is again, so those who might want to get it.
I'd recommend go watching it on YouTube. R. Kelly singing for prisoners. It's very funny.
Right. There you go. R. Kelly, The Prisoners. Don't forget it. Okie dokie. Now, we'll listen to the voicemail in a minute. But what I was going to do is I was going to say, let us just one of my favorite breaks is to go down very briefly, just for a little less than a minute.
Scroll up a sec. I don't know where it's gone now.
What did you say?
This one. So this. What's that? Yeah.
Oh, well, let's take a look. Well, there we are. That's what that one is all about. So now let's take a nice clean break, and this is only a minute long, but it does give you some idea of the town that we broadcast from. You've got a very good idea of the hotel that we broadcast from. Now, here's the part of the town that it's situated in, Lewes in East Sussex, and near to the UK's south coast. Now, you saw there our one of our logos. In fact, it was the original logo of the helmet, the knight's helmet. Do you know what that's all about?
No idea.
Right. Okay. The Battle of Lewes, widely credited with the start of English democracy, was fought here in 1262. So 1264, I take back, between Simon de Montfort, a group of barons, and King Henry the Third. And the reason that it was fought is everybody knows about Magna Carta, signed by or approved by King John, and giving certain rights and freedoms to people other than the crown, except that once he'd signed it, King John paid no attention to it whatsoever, and neither did his descendants. So the barons at the time.
This is where English democracy started and American democracy, because that's when the Civil War.
Well, English democracy started long before America was a twinkle in the eye of anybody over here. That was 1264. But yes, we're sitting in the hotel where known as the cradle of American democracy, certainly American separatism.
Yeah,
where the rights of man were written by Thomas Paine, who was a well-known revolutionary thinker, and who persuaded the colonists in the so-called United States, which Bill Bryson, the historian, says he named, that Tom Paine named the United States, and so a lot of the thinking that went into that took place in this hotel. So you're probably looking at one of the rafters that look down upon the first signs of American democracy, or at least American independence.
Is it a restaurant or a pub across the street? It's called The Rights of Man.
Indeed it is, and it is named after the tome that Tom Paine wrote called the Rights of Man. And essentially what Tom Paine said was that power shouldn't be vested in just a few people. It should be spread throughout society. And as a consequence, he fell foul of the king at the time. He fell foul of the Prince Regent, and the Prince Regent spent a lot of time in Lewes because we had a fantastic race course in those days, and the Prince Regent was a gambler. He liked taking on a bet, and there is a street in Lewes, very steep, cobbled street called Keir Street, and it is said on good authority that the Prince Regent accepted a bet to drive a coach and four down this cobbled street, which would be very, very, very dangerous at the time.
Drive a what? Sorry, a what?
over a cobbled street.
No, they drive a what?
Oh, a coach and four. The coaches were various, well, a bit like cars and buses and things, different shapes and sizes in those days, because there were no such things as buses or cars. So most of it is done by the variety of coaches that you had. The coach and four was a pretty upmarket one. It was 4 horses, and you could get 4 people into the coach. So it's known as a coach and four. And he liked driving these things. So somebody bet him that he couldn't drive it down Keir Street, which he did. And if in fact there had been an accident, the whole of English history would have changed on Keir Street, because there wouldn't have been the Prince Regent wouldn't have become George the Fourth.
I wonder how many incidents like that there have been where someone's done something stupid and it's changed the course of history. Like they've died in some accident, but they could have gone on to change the world. I wonder how many times that's happened.
Quite a few, I think. And having said that, I can't think of one because my mind wasn't geared into.
Well, yeah, you can't think of one because we wouldn't know. We wouldn't know if that happened.
Well, is my mind? It doesn't work that way, unfortunately. But going back to the icon, to the helmet, is that helmet is a sculpture. It's about 8 feet high. It's quite impressive, and it sits in the grounds of the priory. The priory being the Priory of St Pancras. Once again, quite remarkable because it was built they started building it in 1069. Now, when you consider that the invasion by the Normans was only 1066, it was pretty early on. There are only the foundations left at the moment, but you can see the workmanship in that foundation. When it was a working monastery, during the Battle of Lewes, the king was feasting in the Feast of St Pancras. And in those days, they were far more religious in terms of the things that they did than we are today. So here he was making merry, and because he was making merry, the barons and Simon de Montfort managed to creep up on him and have a go, and they broke into the priory, scaring the hell out of the monks and setting fire to some of the buildings. So that's where this monument, this giant helmet to the freedom, if you like, the start of English democracy, sits. And we because we did a lot of work in the first instance to the down at the priory, because in its day it dominated the town. I mean, it was huge. Are you aware of Chichester Cathedral?
Yeah.
Well, the cathedral here, or the church here, was said to be bigger than the Chichester Cathedral. And we always thought Mirador was a bit of a rebel, is a bit different, and we actually would have that as our logo, and which we have, and we stuck with it. Although nowadays, like all things, as you can see from the little top of the screen there, it's done in a sort of a stylized way, and not the actual helmet itself. Anyway, that you've given me an excuse to tell you about the priory, the helmet, And what was happening here 800 years ago. What I was going to do was to play the little Grange Gardens, which is attached to something called the Grange. And part of the reason that there is a relationship between these gardens and the priory is that at the dissolution of the monasteries, everybody went and helped themselves to the wonderful slate and marble that made up the priory, and built their own houses. And although we're not going to, well, I think it may be a little bit of the house, but the house still stands in this park. The park is a beautiful park. It's kept. So here we go. Guidelines. I just saying to Max, he was saying, I'm struggling a little bit to think about things to talk about, and just let it go, let it flow. This one of the key features of this particular couple of hours of broadcasting is that there is no structure. We have not got any sort of structure at all. People can come in, people can send in videos, people can do all sorts of things, and we will play them and we'll react to them. So don't worry too much, Max, because by the time we roll around to 11:30, I can assure you, you'll have talked about all sorts of damn things. Now, I know that you are interested in the car industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and that is a rapidly evolving sector. So what's the latest update on automobiles?
Gosh, it's not new, but electric vehicles. I can't remember what the day is, but something like 2030 for us. We're going fully electric. I think for France it's 2025 or something ridiculously soon like that. Which I'm a little bit nervous about because I don't think we can get that many new cars out in one go so soon. I think it's going to be a real issue that we're going to face.
Right. So once again, is between the this is what we would like to do and the reality of doing it is there's quite a gap.
Yeah.
I suppose because I'm not driving at the moment, I'm not paying too much attention to the car industry. But is the car industry sort of rollicking along? Because it was very important to the British economy, and we've heard nothing about it recently. So what's the state of play?
We've still got a lot of our factories left, which is surprising. A lot of vehicles are made in this country because we are the only country in Europe that drives on the right side of the road and needs left-hand drive cars. Wait, no, I think I got that wrong. I don't know. I'm dyslexic.
Well, we have the steering wheel on the right. Most countries in the world, with one or two exceptions,
we're the only countries that drive on the same side of the road as us in the UK. It's us, South Africa, Japan, and India, which doesn't really count because they drive on both sides of the road. They don't really care.
At the same time, yeah.
I think Pakistan as well for some reason. I don't know. But it's very rare. There's no countries in America, in North or South America, that drive on our side of the road. I don't know why.
Well, we get a lot of inquiries about this sort of thing from Australia.
Australia as well.
Australia, I think, drives on the wrong side of the road.
They drive on the same side as us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, apart from that distinction, how do you? I can remember many years ago, where travel was very limited, and we were still in the aftermath of war, and somebody said, "Oh, we had an American friend who was over." And they said, "Oh, we love your cars, but they're so dreadfully dull, dear." Now, in those days, I mean, you think in terms of a Cadillac and so on.
Yeah.
Are our cars dull, or is there a pretty standard now way of putting things out?
All cars today are pretty dull. I look back at some of the classic American cars and the classic British cars I would love to own, like TVRs, even though they're not really classic. The last one that came out was 2003, I believe. So I like them; they're great. But looking back at the design of older cars, it's so much better than today. Everything's so dull. Even the colors of cars, the vast majority of cars on the road are either black, white, or grey. But when in like the 60s and 50s, they were all bright colors.
Why is that?
I don't know. Everything's more dull. Look at architecture today. It's all grey concrete buildings, and it's nowhere really is left like Lewis with these old sort of buildings like we're in now. It's all very boring and grey and concrete prison buildings, really.
Yeah. Well, now I know you're stepping outside your comfort zone, but if you wanted to brighten up both the things on the high street and the industry, what would you do?
I mean, if I was in control of the government, I would. I would make it easier for people to build. I'm not sure actually. I don't know.
Yeah. Sometimes it's easier for us to say, "Wouldn't it be great if?" And then when you're actually faced with trying hard to put a plan together, it's not so easy.
I don't know how.
I mean, this wasn't meant to embarrass Max. God help me, I would never embarrass him. But by the same token, it is true of us all. Is we get great ideas, and well, it's like sending immigrants to Rwanda. It is terrific, and all sorts of things were put into motion. And then it turns out that it's going to be months before we actually can get planes to go to Rwanda.
Although with that, actually, the Rwanda thing, channel crossings have slowed down since we announced that we are going to be sending illegal immigrants to Rwanda. It's actually slowed down like a dramatic amount. I'm not sure by how much, so I won't say, but I'll try and have a look for some statistics. But it seems to be, with the amount of people coming over, it seems to have slowed down, actually, which is good.
Yeah, although it's amazing, the jungle telegraph it went to almost zero when people thought that they were going to be shipped off to Rwanda. Then the word gets the British government is having some difficulty implementing this, and apparently suddenly, woof, a great sweep of illegal immigrants again coming across the channel,
fleeing the war-torn country of France.
Yeah. Okie doke. Now let's just go to some of the headlines that we saw this morning, and one of the things that I think that I suppose is going to be a couple of things that are controversial, but this business of a windfall tax, which is exercising the minds of activists as they made these obscene profits. We could expect that we should get some of them, so let's impose a windfall tax. On the other hand,
a windfall tax? Sorry. What is a windfall tax?
Right, a windfall tax is where it's a one-off tax because some organisation has got a lot of profits.
I'm sure it would just be a one-time
Unexceptionally,
tax.
yeah. But it's a windfall is a one. You've done very well. We're going to tax you this one once because of that, accepting the fact you probably go back into.
So is this only for companies like Google, Amazon, Starbucks, sort of major corporations, or is this?
No, anybody can be subject to it, and the government would have to decide that they were going to do it. Otherwise, they would just stay under the present tax regime. But the whole idea really is that we will be subject, if we make absurd amounts of money, subject to this one-off tax, and anybody could be subject to it. I think that this legislation to impose a one-off tax on the energy companies is they're not thinking beyond anything other than that. It's just this one windfall. I think the term windfall also comes from the apples on the trees. That you get a sudden gust, and that is a windfall. Not necessarily a plan for. Anyway, right. So going back to the car industry, though, you think that we are pretty damn dull.
Yeah, I do. I think both architecture and cars have just become very boring. There's some companies that make interesting cars still, but they're like the ultra luxury brands. Like you're talking like Maserati, Ferrari, Lamborghini, things that regular people can't afford. But the regular cars, like just generic Ford Focuses, I guess, are just so boring now. They all look the same. It's really difficult to tell the difference between like the SUVs now. It's just it's all the same. They're just copying each other, it seems like.
Yeah, why is that? I mean, is it because that more and more that we've got computerized stuff is, the computer can turn out through its robotics, can turn out
whatever's the cheapest to make, I would assume.
Yeah. So and maximize by charging the most for it.
Yeah, maximize profits. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Let's. Right. Let's perhaps just see what we've got in the video files. Yeah, I think one of the things that now, because we're less than a month away from our big reason, really, for everything taking place this year is this. Okay.
When is
sometime in June. I'm not absolutely sure what the exact date is. 75 magic years. And they have been magic in many ways. We forget some of the things that happened in the Queen's reign. For instance, not least of which is man going to the moon. Now, it is interesting because a lot of it raises its head again the other day, and I think actually you were one of the skeptics to say, did we really go to the moon?
Yes, I am one of those skeptics.
And why are you skeptical?
I don't think it was possible for us to have gone to the moon in the 60s. That's ridiculous. We never did. And all the suspicion, there's a lot of suspicious stuff surrounding it with NASA. They lost all the telemetry data. All the footage was obviously faked. They used regular recording film, which the radiation on the moon would have just destroyed immediately. So there's a lot of things that I could go into, but I don't know. Conspiracy theories aren't allowed on YouTube and Facebook, so as much as I can say, really.
No, I mean, it's there are people who quite seriously have challenged the fact that we did go to the moon, and it was fate. Personally, the complexity of faking it would have been a bigger challenge than actually going to the moon. So,
you think it was easier to build a rocket and go to the moon than it was to fake it in a studio?
Yeah, but when you think of all the things that have then spun off from it, each one of those would have to have been faked. And that's where the mind starts to boggle. I'm not saying that you couldn't have faked it, but to keep up the pretense. And apart from suspicion, there is very little to suggest that anybody faked the thing. Wouldn't you agree, as a pro-fakist?
There's very little evidence they actually went, in my opinion. I don't know. I just don't. The technology that was used in the 60s, how were they talking to each other from such long distances, thousands and thousands of miles? I'm not sure, even 100,000 miles? I don't know how far away the moon is. But for them to be able to talk to each other in the 60s is ridiculous, in my opinion.
Right. Now, let me then say to you, Concorde was very real, right? You would agree. There's nothing. Well, I've been on Concorde. I was fortunate. I was on it for 6 times, and it is very real. Incredible technology. That was actually the Concorde technology was 1950s technology. That's how they started to build Concorde, and only because it takes so long to develop all the finer bits. Was it 1970, wasn't it, that it first took off commercially? So there you can see an example of 1960s or 1950s technology, which was pretty advanced for its time.
Yeah, I think there's a big leap between Concorde. There's a big leap between Concorde and going to the moon. I don't know. I'd have to do a whole show on it to probably go deep dive into it. But again, these sort of things will get you just taken off of YouTube for talking about these things, which is unfortunate because I like talking about stuff like this, but you just get axed from your YouTube and Facebook, which is what we're on right now. So.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to axe us for talking about these sort of things, but I really probably think that it is a deep social media rather than a television channel such as this. And even though we're going out on social media, so far we haven't had the threat of being closed down. We've had a couple of copyright issues where somebody has said, "Hey, you're using a bit of our video or whatever," and we should actually be paid for that in rights. but when we've pointed out the size of our operation, it's quite often they
just don't really care.
They back off and they leave us alone. The question of now, one of our colleagues is a great fan of David Icke, who actually is a conspiracy theorist.
Mm-hmm.
And you know about David Icke.
I haven't watched any of his stuff, but I know about him. Yeah.
Yeah, and here is another example of how he was banned from appearing on all sorts of terrestrials. Never mind
what was he actually banned for?
His views.
Just his opinions.
People said, all sorts of excuses are made to stop people doing things. You have to really dig deep if somebody says you can't do something to see why. But the algorithms or the logarithms or whatever the hell these things are,
right, yeah.
Really are very naughty because they actually pick out little phrases, or as I understand it, and words and so on. So well, how on earth can that be? And how can it be accurate? Because here in about in 2015 or 2016, we made a little. It was a feature. It wasn't a documentary, but it included shots of the memorial, the war memorial at Lewis, in the centre of Lewis, right outside the town hall. Now, the algorithm said, "It come on back in, for God's sake! Stop curling around in the background." The algorithm said this was obscene. The shots that we showed of the war memorial, because it was done in 1922. And in the bottom, there are some very tasteful ladies. One of them is showing a breast. So it decided that was obscene and said you couldn't use that statue.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm going to take 10 minutes. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take 10 minutes, and I'm going to leave you two in charge of this. You know how to do the technology.
I do know how to do the technology.
Oliver, you know how to host the program. So let's let you two have a go. And I will vacate the hot seat for 10 minutes or so.
Put one of these.
Sorry?
We'll put one of these on whilst Stuart comes over.
Right, okay. We need to. Oh, 52 seconds. You're going to have to do it in 52 seconds. Hey, don't wander away.
I'm coming on. Yeah,
Oh, dear.
Oh, goodness.
Actually, we'll do the military wives thing, and that will give them plenty of.
Slave driver, you.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, one of the things that I find interesting, Max, is the skepticism that you and others do have, and I can remember watching the first launch, and of course everybody was nestled around the television set.
You watched it live?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Right. Okay. This is a little a feature about the one of our colleagues did an interview with the actual wives of something called Military Wives, where the military wives formed a choir and sang in the Albert Hall on the Memorial Day, and they did a very nice job on it as well. So let's play this while you two slide in.
I'm Kate Barclay, Colonel Barclay's wife. We need to come up with some exciting activities while our service people are away.
What about singing?
I really enjoyed it. I liked the story, and I related to lots of it, having been an army wife myself. I've never been in a choir and I can't sing. It's a little bit light-hearted in parts, I thought, too light. My own experience of the army was it was far more rigid than they showed. Although I was impressed by the colonel's wife, I was married to a colonel, lieutenant colonel in the Gurkhas. There are set rules, and she had the problem that I had. The others are called other ranks. There's a hierarchy in the army, and I thought they addressed it quite well, actually. There is a difficulty there.
It's nice to see a film where it's not only the central characters are women, but nearly all the characters are women. The men hardly get a look in. We know that the director, Peter Castaneo, directed The Full Monty. It is treated very much, I think, as ultimately a feel-good film with serious bits, like the Colonel's lady is grieving the loss of her son. This is about the women waiting for their men in the Afghan war. So it was given perhaps quite a light touch a lot of the time.
I got a little bit tearful about them because I know the hardship that's suffered by everybody when your men go away. I was lucky my husband didn't actually go to war, but I know what it's like being on your own and being a single mother. I think they could have gone a bit deeper with that.
There's a certain artificiality about the way that it is structured and told, but I think quite a lot of people will enjoy it. Particularly, it's nice to have a tribute to the military wives, the real military wives, who spend so much time on their own, worrying about their husbands, and some of them, of course, they lose their husbands.
This was a feel-good film. This is about people who found something meaningful to do through an upsetting, difficult time. So it was a small conceit, but I think it was worthy.
Lying in my bed, I hear the clock tick and think of you.
Hello, we're back, and Stuart is left. I don't know what he's doing. So before the break, we were just talking about conspiracy theories. We might continue that with Stuart, or talk about energy, because that is what he is an expert in. He's just having his coffee now. He's going to come back in a sec. Yeah, so we were briefly talking about the moon landing. That I find hard to believe that ever actually happened. But maybe we'll talk about something else soon. I don't know don't know what's going on actually right now. Do you want to come back for a second?
He's wandered away.
Do you want to come back for a second, Keith?
Yeah. Oi.
I don't know where he's gone outside.
Mister, you're supposed to be on the air here.
He's gone outside. I don't know what he's doing. Does he know we're live?
I have no idea.
Right. Well, sit down.
Right,
for a sec,
okay,
then.
I'll sit down over here. I mean, conspiracy theories. I mean, one of the big conspiracy theories of my time was the assassination of John F. Kennedy. That in fact it wasn't a single gunman.
Nope, it was the CIA.
That it was various groups, probably the mafia, and there was a lawyer who spent his entire career trying to prove the conspiracy theories. I think his name was Garrity, Pat Garrity, and he. In the United States, and he collected a lot of very good evidence to suggest that it was a conspiracy of right. Are you ready, Mister? Walking away in the middle of a
We are live, by the way, just so you know.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr.
That was one of the.
That was one of the big ones of your
That
day.
was one of the big conspiracy theories, and to this day, there are people that are quite convinced that it was not a single.
Yeah, I'm one of them.
Yeah. Right, sit down. You're supposed to be on the air there.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, Captain, I'm not so much of the bossiness. I'll have you know, I have the rank of major
Oh,
in the American Army, so you watch your step.
right.
Did
Well,
you?
Yeah,
Really? What?
yes. But the journalists, kosher journalists, were given the title of majors. And you know, it was disgraceful because it just meant that if you got hit or injured, you were evacuated before the ordinary soldiers. So
Really?
we took, you know.
Sit down. That's interesting stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't know you were a major in the American Army.
Yeah, I got a little
That's
card
crazy.
somewhere. It's a little card, yeah. Major Stuart Dorby. I used to come in here, you know. Oh, evening, Major. Major, what's the usual point? Is it Major? Oh, boy, yeah. I was going to retire with one of these country squad types. Okay.
Do you want to talk briefly about you being in Vietnam and what that was like?
No. You don't want to hear that, do you? No.
I do. I'm very interested in war, and that's actually what I might want to do when I'm older is war correspondence.
Well, quite briefly, then I tell you. When I left University of Sussex, my biography, which I'm now writing at the moment, is called A Life of Flukes. I failed the 11 plus, so I shouldn't have got into university, Sussex University. After that, I didn't get a very good degree, and I was in London, and I was working on the building site, and there was a copy of the Daily Telegraph and an ad, which I never read the Telegraph, but there was an ad which said, researcher wanted for Financial Times Library, must be a graduate editorial prospects. And then I did quite well in the library, and then I got a job as a company reporter because there was no newsroom in those days. And I learned quite a lot about takeovers and PE ratios and all that kind of thing. And the editor then, Freddie Fisher, who was a German, talked a strange enough accent. I'd arrived in Hong Kong, where he sent me, just when the stock exchange was going mad, then right up. I was sending these bit back and he says, George, you're doing very well. I want you to come back to London to write about the stock exchange here that you did about in Hong Kong. And I said, well, actually, Freddie, I'm thinking of going off to Vietnam to be a war correspondent. And he said, we do not want war correspondents. We are not interested in small wars. Anyway, Mark Franklin, he was so funny. Mark Franklin was the Observer correspondent, but he'd been fed up. He'd been there too long. He said, well, why don't you take over my job? And I did. And then when the FT saw me writing for the Observer, they said, well, can you write for us as well? So I got to be a war correspondent by a rather circuitous route. And I got there in 1971, and I remember, first of all, sitting there and thinking, I'm a little bit psychic, you see, that the Americans are going to lose this war. I just had a gut feeling, and they did. And anyway, because President Johnson, had never declared a state of war, the American soldiers were able to take us anywhere we liked and see any kind of atrocities we wanted to watch, or we could talk to any people about anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that meant that we could, but it was the first television war, and because we had all this, the television, all the cameramen, all the people in America, seeing these atrocities and said, what the hell is this? They told these little yellow guys are winning this war and they've invaded our bloody embassy. What's going to go on? And that protest made Johnson unelectable, and you got Nixon, and eventually the end of the war. But there were some interesting times. Just in 1975, when the city was falling, the American War started in 1965, okay? So it was a 10-year war. It's because the reason it started was that the domino theory. I don't know if you've heard of that, have you? Well, early in the day, Eisenhower and John Foster Dulles, Secretary of State, were God-botherers. And they thought that after China being communist and atheist in 1949, they thought that there would be all the Southeast Asians would be swept through by godless communism, and so that's how it came about, how it all started. But as we went along, it changed in the sense that we could actually get it onto television and we could have brought the end of the war. And towards the end of the war, it was really quite comical in some ways. The Americans had declared, as the airport was still open, the Americans had declared an amnesty for all deserters. They came out from the hills, and there was lots of them, and they all had their child brides, the hill tribe women, or the hill Vietnamese, and they would be given a wedding license at the airport. And in that last week, I had 17 proposals of marriage from the bar girls in Western, which was actually really quite fun. And then later on, the helicopters taking everybody out, and the Americans journalists were told they must leave. There was going to be a bloodbath. Well, there wasn't a bloodbath in Saigon because there'd been one in Da Nang where there was a real bloodbath, but Saigon was then the capital, and their spies there said, "There's no need to have a bloodbath. You've won. It's all over." It was all over. So British journalists were allowed to stay, and we just we took over the Standard Bank's house pop club, as it were, and they buggered off. All the people buggered off. So we used to play badminton and swim in their pool for a while. Finally, they got fed up with us, and they took us up to Laos, which is of Vietnam, between Cambodia and Vietnam, and I got a telegram waiting for me. I told you I was at Sussex University, but my peer group had gone off to America to make their fortunes. And one of them said to me, he found an article about me staying on in Time magazine, American What's It? And he sent me this telegram saying, "Is it true that you got pissed and fell asleep?" And I said, "That is true. And the Viet Cong and you're knocking on your bedroom door the next morning." And I said, "That's not true." "Oh, what a wonderful story. I think we'll go with that version."
When I did some research. I was researching you, just searching out what you've done. And you mentioned it. You stayed behind whilst the helicopters left. There's a very famous photo from Vietnam of the helicopters leaving Saigon.
Was someone bashing him in the face?
No, I didn't see that.
Oh yeah, that was Ed Van Damme. He had one where they're trying to get on the helicopters. And
A bunch of people are climbing up to it.
Yeah.
Did you take that photo? Because that's the first photo that shows up when I search your name.
Oh, that was Ivan. Was it?
Yeah. Well, at some point, I'd love to see the photos you actually took.
I didn't take them. I didn't take photos. See, the photographers I was writing. Generally.
Oh, right. Okay.
But that's another story altogether, because the photographers is the one who really took the risks. You know?
Yeah, I want to be a war photographer because I'm not good at writing.
Well, I don't recommend it. Anyway.
Really? You were telling me you'd been in, 15
No,
wars?
it's about 11.
11.
Yeah.
What wars have you been in? What was the last one?
Well, let's say the last one I was in was Iran, Iraq.
When was that?
1985.
19, okay.
No, something like that. No, well, if you count Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam as 3 separate wars, which they were, but essentially, I'd gone out there from the Financial Times. I'd gone out there when I joined the Financial Times in 1967, and I went right around India. I went down to Sri Lanka, I was then Ceylon, and then I stayed in Calcutta, And then I went into Bangladesh and wrote about that war. Financial Times still didn't want it, but I wrote it anyway, you know. And then I made my way to Hong Kong. I was business editor, and I said, no, I went to Vietnam. And after that, Vietnam, there was all kinds of things offered to me, if you like. I could go to South Africa, which I did. So I saw the war there in Rhodesia, which is now Zimbabwe. And that was the war. And then I did the Portuguese wars when Portugal was a colony. Angola, Mozambique. I did those. And those are that. How many is that? That's 6. And then Beirut, Israel, Lebanon, Israel. And then I also did not the Syrian. I did in the Oman had a war. Now that was really quite funny because Sultan Qubas had been at Sandhurst, and he was actually a gay guy, but so there was no successor. And he used to take me around in his jeep, going up because what happened? The insurgents were coming off from Ain and into Salalah, southern bit of what's it? What did I just say it was?
Oman.
Oman, yeah. And then Oman was a very beautiful place. It had these hills and it had this dry thing where the insurgents coming around. So we got there. And he had British mercenaries to help him out, to help him get rid of these people. And there was a British pilot called Dan Carter, and he was from the RAF, and he was typically Roger Moore, okay, you reach for the skies, with the cravat and the English gentleman, yeah. And it was when I don't know the Mogadishu takeover. DC-10 was hijacked and taken to Mogadishu in Sudan, and his name was Captain Mahmoud, and he wasn't wanted in Sudan, so he flew over and wanted to actually land in Salalah, which was the second airport of and so the Omanis had put bodies on them. And he said, "This is Captain Mahmoud. This is Captain on the radio. This is Captain Mahmoud. This is Captain Mahmoud. I'm going to land. I'm going to land." And Dan Carter said, "Well, I'm afraid you can't, old boy. There's lorries across the one." I said, "All right." He said, "Don't do it. We take over these bloody earrings. I'm fed up with this place." Hello. So I said, "Oh, hello, Captain Mahmoud. I'm Stuart Dorby. I work for the Financial Times." It sounded so ridiculous. And then.
Well, you were on that plane, did you say?
No, it was a hijacked.
Right.
And the hijacker flew in, tried to land in Salalah on his way for God knows where. So that was that one. And
where were you? How were you talking to him?
Through radio on the plane, on the RAF plane. That was it. And there's that one. And there's something else. Yeah, well, they was in Belfast for a long time. Yeah, like Keith was. That gives you about 10.
How long were you in there for?
Belfast.
Yeah.
About 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
Because I know Keith was in there for 15 years, I think.
Yeah.
Something. He was in there for a while.
Well, I was, yeah. Well, I'd done my time in war. Well, the Troubles were really in 1968. So the Good Friday Agreement. So he'd been in that period in the 80s. I was there from 1978, 1982. Got loads of schools, so it's really interesting. I wouldn't fancy it now. I'm far too old. It's very funny because my generation of people haven't been going now. John McConnell's not there. The only one who is there is that I really know very well. It's Christina Lamb at Sunday Times, because she used to work for me. But if people ask you why you become a war correspondent, you say, well, yeah, there was a film made about it. Or I sort of have no idea. I just did it. Some people did it for the adrenaline kick. John Swain, another great journalist, he said, "Oh, it's better than catching the 10 to 8 to Croydon every morning, isn't it?" From Croydon, and
Anything's better than Croydon.
that was that.
Oh.
But I mean, you got to remember that.
When did you start out being a journalist?
Well, when I left Sussex University.
How long ago was that?
Well, I was 22, 66. I got the job at the Financial Times, 66.
1966.
But I didn't know. I didn't aspire to be a journalist.
Did you not?
No.
What did you want to do when you were my age?
I didn't have any idea. I just thought, like, I'd get swept up in some kind of bohemian life. I mean, Bohemia was the tail end of before hippies came along. And in fact, I did live a life because I met a girl who was one of Lucian Freud's muses. And so I used to know him, and I used to know Francis Bacon, the painter. I used to know all kinds of things. And then, I don't know, I just drifted into journalism. You just do, somehow. It's not one of those things where you, like the army, you have ranks and do the same thing. And that's all that kind of stuff. I don't really know why I did it. But in Vietnam, though, I think it was a good cause. I had achieved something, by helping to stop the war. But a lot of people, I mean, I suppose some people like the adrenaline kick. Some of them do. A lot of the photographers, they wouldn't tell you why. They just wanted to get the perfect picture.
I can imagine they saw some horrible things.
Well, you did, yeah, of course you did, yeah. Particularly in Cambodia. Yeah.
Even in Vietnam, I know that was a horrible war because it was a guerrilla warfare. They weren't.
Well, no, the guerrillas. I know it's interesting because the guerrillas, the Viet Cong, the insurgents, they were wiped out in a Tet Offensive in 1968, and that was because they had a massive insurrection and were sure that the country was rose up. Well, it didn't, because American had airplanes and they bombed it into smithereens. Okay, so therefore, when we were there, and there was no threat from them on Saigon because they didn't have a bloody air force to bomb them. But they had a regular army. That was the difference. North Vietnamese versus the South Vietnamese. And the South Vietnamese were useless. But there's something that stuck with me. I mean, it's sort of, the fact that I didn't take the last opportunity to leave, and I said to myself, and I looked up at the last helicopter, and I said, if I can do this, I can do anything. It just gave me self-confidence that I could do things, quite weary. Well, everybody, I was famous for 15 minutes sort of thing. One of my nephews used to take the papers to school and show off to his friends, that's my uncle. And my stepfather, who didn't care for me much, but I used to go up to the shop. He said, I was in it. And of course, I was on the front page all the time. He'd buy it. My mother did the scrapbook and so on. I mean, even today, there's people like say, John Mason, he was in Vietnam. It's a long time ago. It was 45 years ago. Yeah.
Vietnam was 45 years ago.
Well, the end of the war was in 1975.
Right.
April 30th, 12 o'clock.
That's really interesting.
Is it?
Yeah, I'm interested in all sort of stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in going to war to fight, but I'm interested to go to war to document what's really happening.
Did you Google me?
Yeah, I Googled you. I did.
What do I come out? Does it come out about my book, doesn't it?
Yeah, it comes up with a bunch of stuff. I went on images because I searched up Stuart Derby, Vietnam, and I think there's photos of you on Google Images when you search that up.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, because there's some photos.
You go into Google and I'll just come up and there's a whole list, is it?
Yeah.
Just put Stuart Derby in.
Yeah.
But then I can vary it, say
Stuart Derby, Vietnam, Stuart Derby, Ireland, Stuart Derby, South Africa. You said you were there. Maybe, I don't know if you.
Well, my wife says that you've got whole bloody pages and pages of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it was you. I don't know what you looked like that many years ago.
Do you want to know? Let me show you something, all right?
All right. We'll try to get this up on screen. Is it like a photo?
No, hang on. Look, we've got to do energy matters.
Oh, right, yeah. What time is the show scheduled to end, Keith?
11:30, but you can end it a little early.
Okay.
11:15 is fine.
All right, I'm going to put on one of the short clips for a moment. Let's see what is here. This Rouge preview. We'll go with that.
Good morning. It's 20 to 8. Tuesday morning, the 8th of November. This is Rouser Radio.
Okay, that's the wrong one. Don't worry about that.
Well, it is interesting. Hello.
Hello, sorry.
We'll go on to this one.
Password.
Well, there's a book called The Polaroid Years, photos that made because they thought we were all going to be killed. So in 1974, they went around taking these pictures of us all.
What? They were taking photos of you to document you before you died? Was the idea?
No, in case we died.
Oh, in case you died, right. Well, that's much better. Oh.
Right, there you go.
That's what you look like. How many years ago was that?
Okay, thank you.
Come and say hello on television.
On television? Oh.
Yeah.
Come on. Come and say hello. That's what it's all about. What are you doing? What are you doing here?
Keith, you realise you're organising personality theft, aren't you?
Can I try to show that to the camera?
If you want to, yeah.
So they can see what we're looking at. I'm not sure how good this will turn out, but this was you. How many years ago?
Well, it's 1974. So that's 16.
This is Stuart in 1974. Let me
What are
turn.
you good looking?
Stunning, mate, stunning.
I don't know where the brightness is. There we go.
You can't expect to look like you do now.
There you go. That was him.
Yeah.
There we go. Let me turn this back up for you. There you go.
Right, thank you.
Where was that? In Cambodia, did you say?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, I used to in Cambodia. You know, at the end of the war, you're dancing on the rainbow, basically. And I used to actually, in the Café du Jardin opposite the PTT, where you sent all your stuff down. And I used to sing these songs when I'd been, as a schoolboy, I'd been to a camp in the middle of France, right in the middle of France. And there was a funny old boy who came to the camp and did this funny thing, and he used to sing a song saying, Je vais, what was it? I can't remember that.
Can't remember the song.
Charleston.
Oh, you got to keep here
Here we
as
are,
well.
all change.
I'll tell you what that song I sang. I used to do an impression of Marlene Dietrich sitting on the piano, and I used to say, "There's autumn leaves, so rest by my window. There's autumn leaves of a red and a gold."
Oh, it's a good job you didn't make your living singing any more than me making my living singing.
What do the lyrics mean? Do you know?
Yeah, it's a love song, isn't it? There's autumn leaves, so rest by my window. There's autumn leaves.
Who sung that?
I see your face, your sunburned hands, eyes of the sun I used to know. Since you went away, the days go long, but soon I'll hear a summer song. But I miss you most of all. My
darling.
Lord, some leaves start to fall.
Where did you say you would sing this?
I was singing it in a Café de Jardin in Cambodia. As the bombs are falling.
As the bombs are falling.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I am all right. How about you, good self?
Not too bad, thank you.
Good.
Come and say hello on television.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you visiting Lewis?
Passing through.
Passing through.
But we've stayed here before, so I thought, I know where we can get a coffee and have a nice break.
Yeah. Come on round and tell us where you're from.
Where are you passing through?
This is just a drop in.
I'm off to Alfriston for a walk.
Right.
See how that long man's getting on.
Right. Yeah. And where are you from?
We're from walking distance of a little place called Stonehenge, which they haven't finished yet. So we haven't got the roof on.
Right. And so you're down in Wiltshire.
Yeah.
Right.
We moved there from Surrey, and we used to come here for walks to the South Downs. We used to walk on the North Downs. Occasionally used to stray down to. So this is reliving some of our past walks we're going to be doing. We're spending a couple of nights in Seaford.
Right. Come and sit here for 2 minutes and tell us all about you.
If you want to, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Have I come to the right place to get a coffee?
Yeah. We'll get you a coffee in a minute. So come and sit and have a chat. This is Mirador Television, which is the local television.
Right.
And we broadcast daily from here.
Right.
And this is a totally new type of television because it's drop-in.
Oh,
Whoever
right.
actually comes through the door gets on. So we're interested to tell us, Stonehenge is... some people see it as a historic monument. Some people see it as something to go and take a look at. I mean, is it always busy down there?
Well, I've got a nice walk that I do. It takes about 7 miles from my house around a circular walk to include Stonehenge. And yeah, it's always busy there. Yeah. In fact, some people get there quite early in the morning because if you book up it's an English heritage site, and if you book up early and pay extra, then you get in, and I think they actually let you go up to the stones, whereas hoi polloi come later in the day.
They have to stand back. So you don't.
Yeah, seems to be. Yeah, it's always plenty of people people seeing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what's your name?
David.
David. Okay, David. You're from Wiltshire, but you were in Surrey at one stage.
That's right.
Right. And you obviously do the walks, the South Downs walk, and that sort of stuff.
Yeah. We like walking. We used to have dogs. Obviously, we used to walk dogs in the past, but we no longer got any dogs. But we had a pleasant couple of days down in Arundel, and we did some of our old walks in. So I thought it'd be nice to come back to Sussex and do some of our walks again. So,
yes.
So this is what's brought us down here. Like I say, we're going to do the Alfriston. We're off to. We're going to park up, and we're going to do the walk that includes a view of the Long Man of Wilmington.
Right. Yeah. Actually, strangely enough, a couple of years ago, we did a two-way with the United States, Wilmington in Delaware.
Delaware, yeah.
Yes, Wilmington, Delaware. Oh, right. And in the main hotel there, they serve high tea.
They serve what?
So high tea.
High tea.
Yeah, with the cakes and the trifles and the whole thing. And I mean, we actually did it live with the people there. Wilmington, Delaware is actually named after the people from Wilmington here, even though they were only small. But Wilmington at one stage was much more important than it is now because there was a priory there. So, they send people abroad.
Yeah.
But there are a number of places in Delaware and that part of the world that are named after places here.
Of course, yeah.
Not least of which is Lewis, of course.
Yeah, great.
I don't know if you know the history of this hotel, a brief history of this hotel.
I've stayed here, and I think I did. I was familiar with it at one point. Yeah. Yeah, so we have stayed here several times.
Yeah. The cradle of American democracy. Well, thank you for coming in and saying hello.
I've got to make a phone call, so that's one of the reasons we stopped. So yeah,
all right,
I'm going to get
good to see you.
Who takes all this for the coffee?
Enjoy. Yes, if you just go through to the
okay, great.
The girl at reception.
And your name is?
My name's Keith.
Thank you, Keith.
And
Nice to
thank
meet
you. And have a good spin around Alfriston.
Thank you very much.
Well, there you are. It's starting to work, isn't it? The very reason that we decided to do things this way. If you'd like to sort of, it's another 5 minutes. So shall we just take a very brief moment to recap what we've done this couple of hours? You what?
Lost my credit card.
You and credit cards just don't match.
That's all right. It's a sort
How many have you lost?
You sure it's not in your book here?
of, I just never said she's got it because I can't.
Yeah. Okay, right. Well, this morning's players, full cast, being Max and myself, Keith Hayes, and Stuart Dolby, who is diving off to try and find his credit card. He just mislaid it. Then he will, with the team of Max and Stuart, will do Energy Matters.
That'll be coming up in
coming
15 minutes.
Yeah. So that's been a very full morning because we were in here at about 7 o'clock, and we've been broadcasting since 8:30. A marathon, you might say, but we don't expect people to stick with us all of the time. But you can dip in and out, and hopefully you'll find one or two things of interest and amusement. So Mirador Television, broadcasting from the White Hart Hotel in Lewes, in East Sussex, in the UK. And I say that because we do have overseas viewers, and we have to remind people exactly where we are and why we are. So we will say a toodle pip. We will be back tomorrow morning at 8:30. Do join us then. You never quite know what's going to happen on any given day. It is who knows? Stuart might get lost and wander back in again tomorrow, and then appear on screen again. Or he might not. He might be playing bridge. One never knows. Anyway, that's what we're all about. Mirador Television, broadcasting from the White Hart Hotel, affairs of the heart, and we hope that you'll dip in and stay with us each weekday morning. And from 8:30 is when we do the serious stuff. We look at the papers and what's going on in the world. And I normally have a rant if I'm on my own. And then we go on to the lighter-hearted stuff at 9:30. And generally speaking, we give ourselves until 11:30. But we sometimes, if we're running thin on people, we end just a little bit earlier. But we're not bound by the restrictions of regular television. We don't have to be exactly on time. We don't have to be 10 minutes here and 10 minutes there. We can do more or less what we want, and that's what we do. And that's what this program is all about, is people can drop in, say hello, share their experiences, and that's what's happened today, and I'm glad that it has. So, Maestro, if you want to do the extra, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Tune in later for Energy Matters with Stuart Dolby. See you.
So I can understand it fully.
See you later. Bye.